Hi, welcome back to Rush Podcast. I'm Sandy Barker, president and co-founder of Gold Rush Cure Foundation. We continue our work in Washington, D.C. with yet another special episode recorded right here near the Capitol while Gold Rush Cure Foundation attends Cure Fest and makes our voices heard. Right now, you are in for a treat. We originally started the Rush Podcast to be able to tell you stories of our heroes, our survivors, our fighters. They're really exciting. And today is a celebration to recognize and hear the story of Juanita, who is a survivor, an advocate, and the founder of BeholdBeGold. Her story is filled with bravery, courage, and lots of strength. So welcome, Juanita.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Good to be here.
Before we dig into your story, I would love for you to share with us one unique and fun thing about you. Like what, that people may not know.
I love to dance salsa.
Ooh, fun.
Yes.
I want to see that.
Oh, okay, well.
Maybe not right
one
now.
Day, yeah, one day. But yeah, no, I love to dance salsa. I am Hispanic, and that's part of, it comes with it, really. It's just one of those things that you're naturally born with, and you feel the rhythm, you feel the joy. I feel the joy every time I dance, and just the steps and everything, how it's kind of choreographed, but really being yourself, and that's me, just sunshine, yeah.
Have you always loved doing that, or is it something that came like at a certain age?
So I came to the U.S. when I was 7, and I started I was in school with a lot of American kids. I kind of got lost in my roots during elementary, middle school, and high school, and then during community college is when I started getting kind of like hanging out with more international people. And finding out maybe being different is cool, because first I saw it as kind of embarrassing. Just I didn't really fit in with my peers in the classroom. And so that's when I went 1 month to Colombia. That's where I'm from, with my family. And they put me in a dance class and for a whole month. And that's where I kind of, it sparked right out of me. And then I started, doing that ever since.
Like, this is my jam.
Exactly. That's how it was. I felt the beats and the rhythms, and it just kind of blossomed, and there was really after that it's just been me just going and dancing, performing, or stuff like that. Yeah,
a cool way to express yourself.
Exactly.
Yes, probably therapeutic too.
It is so therapeutic.
Yeah,
it is.
Stuff like that, I mean, you can't underestimate, just like when you exercise, when you dance, whatever.
Yes,
it's very therapeutic.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were diagnosed at age 10.
Correct.
Take us back to the beginning. Tell us what it was like before you got diagnosed. Tell us what it was like after everything like that.
Right. So, like I mentioned, I came to the U.S. when I was around 7 years old. So it was a big transition, just transitioning into life in the States. Very cultural shock. And for me and my family, everything was just very different. And a lot of different things happened in the sense of just moving to a new country, getting used to everything, going to school, not knowing the language, then learning the language, then, doing all that. And just a little, as I got older, after, I think it was around when I was 10, is when something was just not right. I would go, it was towards the beginning, it was like the end of the summer, and I was going into 5th grade. Mm-hmm. And during 5th grade, it was like the first week of 5th grade. And then that's when I started kind of not feeling like a normal child anymore. I started getting random bruises on my body. I started feeling pain on my right leg. To a point where I was limping. I was getting very fatigued. And just, I think it was just traumatic seeing the bruising. Yeah. Lots of bruising and so everybody was kind of worried at the time. My dad was in Colombia, his brother had passed. And so, it was like my stepmom at the time, she called my dad and said, Juanita's at the school nurse, she has a fever, and we need to get her quickly, to the hospital. And so we went to several before the hospital, went to several doctors, and nobody, this is nothing, blah, 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 nobody really cared.
Now, let's do a CBC and a metabolic panel and figure out what's wrong. No, just like, hey, you're fine.
Exactly.
Yeah,
just give her some Tylenol. You know, hope she just kind of needs to come down. You know, has she been hitting herself on the couch? Does she rough play? Like all this stuff that, you know, you would never expect. So my stepmom told my dad to, I know, I'm sorry, he's in a hard situation right now, but he needs to come home because she just can't deal with everything. You know, and she needs him here. So when my dad came back, is when my stepmom had kind of already told the news to my dad that that I had cancer. And my dad just couldn't believe it. He had to go, obviously, to the hospital and hear it for himself. And so then, you know, that's when later on, I think like a week later is when they took me into the hospital. I mean, I got into the hospital. I was in emergency room. And I think it was like a week later where everything was kind of like, I was admitted, but I didn't know what was happening. Everything was happening so fast. Exactly. Yeah. And I wasn't really, you know, I felt awful, but, you know, I was just letting my parents handle whatever, you know.
But they had already told your mom at that point you had cancer.
They had already told, yes.
And do you remember when they told you?
I remember.
Did they not tell you yet?
So I remember that, like I mentioned, like a week went by, and then like the doctor, they couldn't tell me. They were, you know, it's just something that if you're in the childhood cancer community, you know. So they let the doctor tell me. And the doctor came in. She rubbed my back. She sat next to me, and you know, she said, "Juanita, you have cancer." And then I automatically was like, "What? Like cancer? And then dying? And then
I'm a child."
At 10, you know, at 10 you kind of know already like what cancer is, and because of you see commercials or you know whatever, just you just know. And I didn't know what that meant, but I know that cancer was relation to dying. So I automatically was like, oh,
which we need to change, by the way.
Yes.
We got work to do.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, but as a kid, you just kind of, you just, that's your immediate thought.
Of course.
After that, I was just like hysterical. I remember crying and like what, and it all came bam, bam, bam. It was like, Juanita, you have cancer. Juanita, you're not going to go to school for a long time. Juanita, you know, you're not going to be able to see your friends. Juanita, you're not going to be able to do this, do that. You know, out of the nowhere. So obviously as a child, I felt the anger, the everything, the rage, the scared, like, and everything after that was so like quickly in the sense of like, okay, well, we're going to need to get her a portacath. So that transition came on. So first it was like no school. So I was trying to cope with that, and, you know, it was hard, obviously. And then afterwards, like, okay, well, let's, you know, the treatment part's like, we're gonna have to give you treatment. So that step came. Then again, for me, it was like no school. Okay, so I had to, it was a lot of process in a short period of time because they needed to quickly get me into the hospital. When I got into the hospital, they said, you're gonna have to go the procedure of getting a portacath. And then all I really remember, I don't remember, this is something that later on I found out from family, friends, nurses, you know, doctors, that they were doing the portacath procedure. When they did the portacath procedure, the surgeon cut a vein that they weren't supposed to cut. And I got an infection called Klebsiella. And that infection caused me to go into the vein, and the infection caused me to go in a state of coma for a month. I had a trach tube. I was in the intubator. It was one of those things that, I mean, I can't even tell you how I'm here talking to you today. You know, it was very traumatic. Wow. And I've learned to talk about it already to a point that, okay, I'm comfortable talking about it. But there's times that I do get emotional because you do, I wasn't conscious, but I do remember a little bit of it, but not too much. And so my dad at the time was not with my mom. And my dad called my mom and was like, you know, you need to get here and say goodbye to Juanita. The doctors are telling us that, you know, it's time to say goodbye. But I mean, there was just so many, there was so many people around us already, like, trying to say goodbye and everything, and everybody was crying. Nobody, you know, it was one of those things that I don't know if there was any hope at all. Some people, I feel like the more people that had like more faith-based, but it was just one of those things that I was a vegetable. I was a vegetable. And after that, I remember just all of a sudden, like, I don't remember this, but what I've heard is just like that I came back.
You woke up.
I woke up after that month, and everybody was just in shock. Like those cases that you say,
you're
like,
a fighter.
Yes. As those cases that you say, you don't know how I'm here, but I am, and I'm here for a purpose, right?
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt.
Yes, and after that, I woke up with a stroke. I was paralyzed from head to toe. I didn't know how to speak Spanish. I didn't know how to speak English. I didn't know how to speak. My mind was of a 4-year-old instead of a 10-year-old, so it set me back, way back. I had no idea how to do all my activities of daily living. I basically had to, like, I was a toddler.
You had to relearn everything.
Yeah. My speech was, Juanita, do you want some fruit? Nothing came out. They would change diapers. They would do, I'm a 10-year-old. And it was very vulnerable situation, obviously. And so, I just can't even imagine my dad and everybody who's watching me going through it. It's just, I can't. But from what I learned today is that obviously it was a horrific, that to a point that my dad doesn't speak to me about it because it just makes him cry. Well, not at all.
That's PTSD alive and well.
Yeah.
You just, when you talk about something that's so hard, you go right back to that moment.
Yes.
And you relive it.
Correct.
And sometimes, sometimes you can talk about stuff because you have so many times, but when you really talk about it and you still feel it there.
Yes.
You can talk about it like you are right now.
Yes.
But you still are reliving it every time you do it. Yeah, it's rough.
It is very rough. Yeah. Yes.
What's your actual diagnosis?
My diagnosis was pre-B cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
Did you have cytogenetic involvement? Was it standard risk ALL? Like, what was your treatment protocol?
It was, good question. It was like the isolation and then maintenance and then
So like 2.5, 3 years of treatment.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that we have to think back to I couldn't move, so I was inpatient for a year straight, not going. I didn't know school. I didn't know the teachers would come to me even if I felt like doing it, and it had to again go back to letters and numbers and adding and addition and all this and that whole year was literally physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. It was all about learning over and over again everything from when like you were born, the colors, the numbers, everything. But yeah, and so that was that, and so that missed a lot, and that was pretty bad. Yeah.
So there's bits and pieces that you remember. I mean, there's, some you don't because you were in a coma, and some you don't just because there's a point where mentally, I feel like your body goes into just emergent mode where it almost, and that's part of sometimes where you feel like it shuts down, where you can't take anymore.
Correct.
And so some of the stuff, it's probably good you don't remember just because you were sick.
Yeah.
You're a little girl.
You mentioned about the treatment. It was a lot of chemotherapy. It was 15 different types of chemotherapy. Yeah. And it was, and a lot of spinal taps. I remember that a lot. It's as funny as it may sound, I love to get them because I would like go to sleep and, it was just weird. Like
Did you guys hear that? Did you say that again? That's funny. Nuts.
Right? Yes. I was just like, I don't know. I think my little body
look forward to your spinal tap so you could go to sleep.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
You're a tough girl.
Yeah. Yes. Obviously at the time I didn't know what that was injected in me. Right. I didn't know any of that. But
For those who don't know a spinal tap, by the way, Google it.
Yes, Google it.
And she said she looked forward to him.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Lots of blood transfusions. There was a lot of treatments involved. Mm-hmm. And a lot of therapy. Lots of therapy. Psychological. I went through depression, anxiety, everything, all that.
And a lot of that stuff, as hard as it is, some of that's par for the course. you know, where they'll automatically, especially if you're a certain age, put you on antidepressants and put you, because you're going to be spending so much time in the hospital. You're going to be going through so much stuff. You're not around friends. You're not in school. So childhood cancer treatment, probably with anybody, not just children, but mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, every single aspect of your life is affected. Literally every single one. And so people always focus on the physical, but I'm telling you, all of it needs to be addressed. Every single bit of it, because it's all very, very impactful as you, on you as a person, on your healing, on your family, you know, all of that. So it's a lot. Okay, so when you meet kids now who are going through stuff, just starting out, similar journey, do you feel like you can relate to them? Yours was so extreme, you know, having, 10-year-old having stroke, being in a coma. Do you feel like you can relate to them, or do you feel like they didn't have it as bad, even though it's still really, really hard? Like, how do you feel when you meet kids that you work with?
That I work with currently, who also have childhood cancer?
Yeah.
In some ways, I can say I can relate, and then I always kind of emphasize that everybody's different. Everybody's story is so different.
Yep.
You know, I guess some of the medication, sometimes when they're getting it, there's like a little taste to something, and I'm like, ooh, you know, I can taste it even if that's not in my tongue, you know? Yeah. That kind of stuff. But everybody's different. And I always like to emphasize that, because everybody's experience is going to be completely different. But I do have a couple friends, like I had somebody who like had a stroke, and she would sometimes with some of these individuals that I speak to who are survivors, and they tell me stuff and I could relate. I was like, oh my gosh, I felt like that too. Oh my gosh, I speak to them and they are like, yes, that happened to me too. So in that aspect, it makes you feel like, oh, well, crap, I'm not the only one who like was undergoing this hardcore, trying to force my brain to really think. When I got back to school about all this stuff, I had chemo brain, I had brain fog just because of everything. Yeah. So it made me feel comfortable knowing that, okay, I'm not the only one struggling. Yes.
I was going to say that seems like it would be comforting. Not the opposite, but knowing, okay, I wasn't the only one that really, really struggled with not just getting better, relearning and all of this, because you never want to be the only one who's going through a hard situation.
Correct.
And there is always comfort talking to someone who's been through the same thing as you. Like you said, every single situation is different, but there are similarities that where you can go, okay, yeah, I get it. I get it. I know that sucked. Yeah. And I know that, your journey back has been hard.
Correct.
So how long from when you were diagnosed at 10, then you're in remission? Correct. How long was it? Because I know you relapsed at one point. Tell us what happened there.
Yeah, so I relapsed I had the cancer at the age of 10, and then I relapsed at the age of 14. And so I had, my first treatment was about 2 to 3 years. Then the second treatment was around, in total it was all 5 years. So I relapsed around 6 months later, and right when I was in middle school, and I was in 7th grade. And I was sitting in class thinking everything was like, oh gosh, my hair is going to grow back. Everything's going to be okay. I'm going to be normal. I'm going to be with my friends, this and that. But I forgot to mention that I went back to school and I was placed in different classrooms, and that had me, of course, angry. So I was placed in a different classroom, but anyways, this classroom where I had my relapse was a normal, you could say normal classroom with no special other teachers. And I was sitting in class and I started just getting like foggy vision. And I was just like, this is not normal. This is not normal, but you know what? Since I'm like a teen already, I don't care. I'm like, I don't want to go back to the hospital, so I'm just not going to tell anybody, So I let a couple of weeks go by, and then I just couldn't see. And then I automatically told my dad. And my dad has been there the whole time. He was there from the beginning, the whole time, till still now, But I'm just saying he's, as soon as he's like, Juanita, why didn't you tell me, this is so important, blah, 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 like very, like, grounding me. So I was just like.
That's every parent, though.
Yes.
Every parent, and it's not going to most of the time, but every parent's waiting for that other shoe to drop.
Yes.
You know, your child gets a low-grade fever just because they've got the flu. Your mind goes there. You see one bruise on them, your mind goes there. I mean, it is rough.
It is.
You know, so
for you, yeah.
I'm sure when you came to your dad, his first thought
was
was that
scared.
It's back.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Anything that hurt, he obviously, like any parent, you want to ask the doctors quickly. So I then he took us straight to the hospital, and he told them, and then there goes like an exam. You know, that's anxiety that we talk about sometimes, and then there it was. You know, the cancer had come back in my eye, my right eye, and it was like a big massive of tumor there. And so what the doctors said, it was a relapse of a central nervous system relapse.
So it's in your brain.
Correct. So that meant a different treatment now. That meant radiation.
Stronger.
Correct. Radiation and chemotherapy. Oh my gosh. I think the first time I always say this and emphasize this, that I think the first time was it was more scary in the sense of, this was all new to me, a new world, new people, new faces, you know, everywhere I went. It was just like new people and everything, new place, environment, everything was new. And this time I felt like I was at home, and these people were going to do their best to treat me. And of course I was mad. My hair just had started to come back, and I still had an afro. I was like, oh, fine, I'm fine with my afro and my wig or whatever.
Hair.
Yeah, exactly. And now I'm a teen, and so I think, you know, that's a unique experience that I underwent, in the sense of like I was a child and then I was a teen, and so I walked through life through different phases, and so now as a teen, now I am really getting socially like awkward and embarrassed, more of like, you know, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm scared the first time, oh, you know, I'm gonna be school, you know, I want to be with my friends. This was more of like, what are they gonna think of me? What, you know, oh gosh, I'm that weird person in the classroom or whatever. And so it was very scary. And again, I would just want to be a normal kid, and why does this have to happen to me again? After everything that happened, you know, and I knew it wasn't going to be as worse as the first time, because I mean, things, I don't know, I just had a sense of peace. Like I mentioned, I knew the people, the environment, and I knew the routine. I knew what that felt like. I knew what getting a shot or getting that treatment or getting that as like medicine. I know what taking like 50 pills is like, you know. It's stuff that I was like, okay, I'm becoming a pro at it, and I can handle it, Juanita.
Okay, how messed up is that?
Right?
I'm a pro at taking 50 pills a day, and I'm a pro at, you know, flushing my portacath. Like all that kind of stuff. So you had to have a new portacath, right? Put in? Did they take the other one out?
No.
They kept it in.
Yeah,
okay,
they kept
good.
it in.
Yeah. It's people don't realize what the kids go through. And what's crazy with you and so many other kids that we talk to is they just do it. That, you know, this is what they get used to, and this is what they know. And what's always so astounding to myself and everybody else on my board and volunteers are, you guys aren't complaining. You guys are rolling up your sleeves going, okay, what do I need to do to get better? I want to go back to school. I want a normal life. I want to be with my friends. What do I need to do it? And so not that you don't like it, not that you're not mad or sad or whatever, because that's all you would not be, but you're doing the work to get better. And I think that's why you guys are so inspiring to us, is because, you know, we meet people who complain about every little thing, and then we meet you guys and we're like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's just truly amazing and inspiring. So, okay, so what all did your treatment entail when you relapsed?
So that treatment entailed radiation, like I mentioned, and chemotherapy.
So, okay, talk about that. People don't realize. They think, oh, you just go in and get nuked once. No, it's not fun.
No,
So-
it was a learning experience in the sense that
You had a mask and everything.
I had to do a mask, and I was like, what is this mask? I don't want to put this mask on. What the heck? Like, then you have to go inside of. I hate small spaces. I can say sometimes that, yeah, I could be like claustrophobic. Not really bad,
too.
but
I'm with you, sister.
Yeah.
I don't like it either.
and they're like, oh, we're gonna make it cool because they get to some music and this and that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, they have their little speeches that
And
you're
you have
just
a
like,
mask
yeah,
over your face that is custom made for you.
custom made for you.
That is formulated to every single nook and cranny in your whole face.
Correct.
That, yeah, it's daunting. It's a daunting thing, and so these, like I said, these kids do it, and I don't know. I'm still in awe. Yeah.
Yeah. It was stuff that you don't. I think that's what makes a lot of us very mature. That it's like, oh yeah, check this off the checklist.
Yeah.
I've done that. I did that. I can move on. But yeah, the mask, the chemo again. I think for me the biggest part was always school and not being able to catch up with my peers. Like I mentioned, I was very confused why I was learning slow, or like my math was very poor. My science.
Well, mine is, but
a lot of people say
you have
that
an
too.
excuse.
Yes, no,
I
a lot
just
of people
suck
say
at
that. It's like it's confusing. It's hard to comprehend or tell people. It's just like like I guess just directions. Like I don't know, just a lot of direction, a lot of memorization, right? Like so, you can imagine all the stuff that you have to do to pass an exam to get to the next round and next. It's like you're playing a video game. It's like you want to get to the next round. But there was always that barrier that like you couldn't. Yeah. I couldn't get to the next round, and so that took a lot of summer. I never could say I had a summer when I was a child or an adolescent, or even when I was in college. It was a lot of. Nope, summer school, nope, you're going to study, you're going to do what you need to do, and really focusing on it. I had teachers, all kinds of teachers who were really pushing me and helping me and very empathetic. I can say that I'm very lucky because I've heard other students who've had childhood cancer who have not been so lucky with professors or teachers, etc. But thankfully I've had a good support group and of educators who would literally stay with me till like evening to, study for the exam, and repeat until I was just sick of it. And then, and then I was able to make it. So that was a lot of the school. I put an emphasis on that because it was overwhelming. It was so overwhelming. And then thinking like, okay, now I go to the next grade. It's going to be overwhelming. Now then everybody graduates.
Which is another stress.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, and including with again, and that's a stress, like you mentioned, and then the school stress, but then the treatment stress.
Yes, so you're still going to clinic, you're still getting chemo, you're still getting radiation, and not
in the school, not fitting in or like missing out on a birthday, missing out on whatever, on a football game. Like, no, I can't because I have to go. My levels are low and I can't be near people, etc., etc., etc. So there are so many things that you're just like, no, you're not living a normal childhood or adolescent, and nothing like that. And those were a lot of things that I remember a lot that I was very mad about, and
understandably,
yes, and then just other kids, I guess, bullying. One kid took my wig off one day, and oh my gosh, I just remember going to the
that makes
bathroom.
Me want to cry.
Yes,
and that makes me want to beat him up.
Yes, I was so ashamed. I was so embarrassed. I did cry. Obviously, I went to the girls' locker room and I was just like, "What the heck?" That was not cool. And sometimes it's even friends. They're going through their own issues. They're adolescents too, right? They're going through their own whatever they're really experiencing. That I'm experiencing completely something different. So but there's no relation. There's no no, you don't understand. You don't understand. And then people asking questions all the time. And that also made me mad, because why do you have to go to that classroom? Why are you in this, I'm going to say it, but why are you in the dumb kids classroom? Words like that is really stuff that, those words need to be scratched out forever. It's just stuff Some people just learn differently, and there were so many other kids that had their own learning disability issues, and so that's just the stress of everything. It's like there's a big ball of stress that you're just like, you can't get out of it. So to get to the point, there was a lot of stressors happening, and it was just hell. It was hell, yeah.
In every aspect.
In every aspect of it.
Like I said, physically,
mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually.
It's a lot.
I would pray to God and be like, I'm Catholic, and it's one of those things that, I do believe, like I mentioned to you, I do believe, like, I'm here for this happened to me for some reason, and I have to go undergo it, and that's my mission, and that's it, But it was just one of those things, like, I would fight back and forth with God, like, why? And it was all of whys, and it was horrible. It was horrible. And then I think going back, I didn't cover this topic, but there's the whole family's involved, right? Yeah. Everything too. That's another aspect that's just like, what's happening at home. There could be a divorce happening. Mm-hmm. There could be fights going on with the family due to the treatment, mm-hmm. due to who's going to keep the job, who's going to lose the job, who's going to take care of the child, who's going to bring home the money, right? Who's going to take care of that sibling and who's not? Who's going to take that sibling to soccer practice? Are they going to get to go to soccer practice? Is this person going to be able to go into, who's going to drive them? Because that's another thing, the driving, there's just so... finances, everything happening with everybody, not just the child undergoing cancer, the parents,
the family disease.
It is, and you understand it just like all of us in this childhood cancer world. It's not just the child, and I think also that stress from the stress of the family, the child feels it. I felt it. I felt the stress. I felt that I was like guilt, like crap. I need to be. I'm causing a stress for all these people. And this is why this happened, and that's why that happened, and I'm the fault of everything. And that adds on to your stress because you're just, you don't know what to do. And you're like, I caused this, I caused that. And it really, there was a moment where, my stepmom did, she had to, she had her own kids. And so she took great care. And I'm still good friends with her today. She took awesome care of me during my first round, and then when the second round hit, it really was one of those things where, and I didn't understand it then, but I understood it as I got older. And I think that's another thing, not holding grudges because you don't know what's happening, yeah. Right? And that was just a lot of stress for her, and I love her to death, and it was a lot happening that she also had to do her kids and that. So these are the things that people don't see that's happening. Mm-hmm. That they don't see it. They think it's just like, there's a child having cancer, they need treatment. That's it.
They see the commercials with cute ball kids.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know the stuff you're talking about.
No.
They don't know what happens behind closed doors.
No.
And it's hard for me to hear.
No.
Someone can treat you like that when you're going through so much. And then when you're talking about your family, like we're talking about PTSD, mm-hmm. I'm thinking of my family, what my family went through. I mean, it affects all family. It just does. And something, you were talking about school. You were talking about, I feel like I need to say a little public service announcement here for, because I think it's important, when you were talking about school, and for you teachers out there, listen to her story. Like, if you have a child who's diagnosed in your class, just hit it head on. Talk to your students about it. Talk to them. These children are exactly like the rest of your students, but they're sick. Have empathy. Teach them how to be understanding. Correct. And teach them how to, be respectful and love and caring to these kids. Because they need to learn, and just remind them that they are literally the same person that's just going through a really, really hard time and that's sick. And be understanding when they have challenges when they come back, because they do have chemo brain. It's a real thing. And if you've had cranial radiation, that's a real thing too with your cognitive skills. Mm-hmm. So for your teachers out there, just be understanding, this wasn't even a question, but I feel like what you've been through, it's something, there's so many teachers out there, it's something that they need to really be educated on.
Yes.
Because they could be so helpful, but to ignore it isn't going to help, So what would you, oh my gosh, there's just so many questions I want to ask you, but I mean, as far as with the treatment you received, let's say you meet somebody who's coming in today who is just diagnosed, what advice would you give them today?
I would say patience is a big thing. As you're talking about if a child, I would say take it like a second at a time, and just I think I've learned a lot through the time that you just have to be patient, just like we're talking about like educators in the sense of, we're that's off the topic, but I'm just trying to make the point that a child with cancer needs like a lot of, I feel like as a child with cancer, you just have to be patient in the sense of, okay, like somebody's gonna come and like take care of me. I think we get very, that was my situation. We get very like, I don't know how to put it into words. Just like patience of like, we don't know what's gonna happen. Everything's happening simultaneously at the same time, right? I think there just needs to be cooperation with everybody, but you also have to be patient with, for instance, the caregivers that are taking care of you. Everybody's trying their best to make you be so comfortable. The child life specialists, the nurses, the doctors. There's so many people that are trying to really help you get out of there, right? And I know that, personally for me, I was impatient a lot. Impatient in the sense of like, wow, I want this now, and I just want to be out of here, and really, and it's okay to have those feelings. It's totally normal. It's okay to have those feelings, but I think it's also another way of saying like, have mercy on other people because they're trying their best to help you out. And that's something I think I learned through my second treatment, where I was just more like, okay, they're doing their best everything's gonna come. I don't know what the outcome, or I don't know what's gonna happen next. You never know. You don't. Tomorrow's not promised for anybody. So it's just one of those things that I've learned through that experience, undergoing it, that I would give to another childhood cancer patient. Just be patient, and because you just never know what the outcome's going to be, right? And
there's a lot of people in your corner, that are behind you and rooting for you and supporting you, and that doesn't negate the suckiness of what you're going through.
Correct.
And it's not a word, but it doesn't negate, but it does make you know you're not alone.
Correct. And and with that comes like a little mind shift. Yeah. If you think about it, like the patience is like, okay, I'm going to be patient instead of raging out, and So I that's always been my kind of mentality, like a little mind shift. Let's put a little bit of, it's okay. Yeah. Kind of.
So you're doing advocacy work.
Correct.
So let's lead into that, because we could talk about your story forever, because it's so multifaceted and amazing. What got you interested in doing advocacy work and like really you lending your voice to late stages and the follow up and everything that happens after you are deemed okay, you're in remission, you're cancer free, you're everything.
Yes. So the advocacy work started when I was done with, there was a period in my life when I finished my second treatment, of course, that I was just like, oh gosh, thank you, God, the hair's coming back.
How old were you when you were done?
I was 15.
Okay.
15. And this was in 2008 when I finished everything. So think about 2003 all the way to 2008, right? And that day was awesome because it was a big party and everything. That's another story for another day. But basically, I then started getting very closed about everything. I closed that chapter. Yeah, I was to say tapa in Spanish, but chapter. Yeah, I closed that and chapter, and then I was like, I don't want anybody to associate me with childhood cancer.
Which is understandable.
Yes, very understandable.
So in my rearview mirror, I'm done with it.
Yes, I'm done. I My hair was growing back. I felt like I was getting
It's beautiful, by the way.
Thank you so much. And it grew differently. It grew curly because before it was straight. Yeah. And so I was done. I wanted just to go back to high school, be with like again my friends. I didn't want anything to do with it. I know that I still had like my learning disability, but that was fine. I accepted it, and I was like, okay, like that's fine, whatever. And I would just wanted to be with friends, right? And graduate on time. And that was kind of like the thing. Like, okay, so I left all that behind. And then I was able to, the day I graduated from high school was amazing because I just never thought I was going to be able to do it with my friends. So it got to a point where I went to community college, and that was hard to accept. That was another fight between me back and forth, because I wanted to go to 4-year college like everybody else. But I had to keep into account that. And, I had a vocational counselor who kind of guided me and was telling me, like, Juanita, think about it. All these people they haven't gone through what you've gone through. So you need to be realistic, this and that. So I started, again, that mind shift of like, you're right. If I get this, go here and take like 3 courses instead of like 5 or 6, I'm going to do better, have a better chance of doing everything. So in that, during that moment, I started thinking, somebody from, I think the American Cancer Society contacted me, and from the hospital, they shared my name about, Juanita would be cool about doing, I think at the time was like it was called Cure by Design, and from the American Cancer Society, and it was like me, basically like a fashion show. So I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, maybe, like, I think that would be cool to spread a little awareness about cancer. And it was more about cancer than childhood cancer, But I was like, I've never done this, and that'll be up for it. So I did that. That was kind of like my first, everything was kind of getting started. Yeah. This was in community college.
You got the bug.
And and then, like, yes. And
this matters.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm making a difference. This is cool. This is awesome. And then after community college, I went on to Virginia Tech. And that was another story for, again, another day. If people want to contact me and hear more, I'll tell them. But basically, I got into Virginia Tech, which was something nobody really, and I want to say nobody, it's not like everybody's this encouraging me. It's just like, it was a hard thing to accomplish, right? Like, I already told you my struggles through education. So then I transferred to Virginia Tech, and then there, somebody, again, from Relay for Life, was like, I met a friend, she was in the Relay for Life committee, and was like, hey, can I share your story? I'm writing a piece on it. So then I was like, yeah, sure. So then that came out, and that was cool. And then another person, again, at Virginia Tech contacted me, so that came out. And then in my head, I'm like, okay, that's not so bad sharing my story. It's a little embarrassing because there was a lot of things that were very vulnerable, but it was okay.
But it's impactful.
It is. And then after that, I finished Virginia Tech. Then I moved on to, I'm in the process of being what's called a certified child life specialist. And these are the people who know about it, is like they're educators.
You're going to be amazing at it, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So that takes its own long process, just like becoming a doctor, just like becoming a nurse, just like there's steps and steps and steps. So anyway, so I had to do a step of getting a practicum. And so I did it at Children's National, actually, which was amazing. And I was like, wow, Children's National. And I had to learn how to be independent. Where the town where I was 45 minutes away from Virginia Tech, so it was okay. Like, I could drive. I think that's another thing for survivors. Like, you get used to having your bubble and your parents and everything, and it's hard to detach. And I was scared. It was scary, but I did it, and I was like, okay. And then I got to Virginia Tech, and then that happened, and then I went to the practicum. I was like, okay, if I'm gonna come to a big city like DC, I need a repetition. So I started all summer. I took the train. Every weekend, I would come, take the train, get to the hospital, come, take the train, take the bus, go to the hospital, everything that I had to do it on my own. Just because that's how my mind was like, you're going to be able to do it. Don't let your health issues set you back. Yeah. And I was able to do it. So this is when I started learning about Cure Fest, because it was around that year. And I was like, wow, how cool. This is going to be my goal. 1 year, I'm going to come to Cure Fest, and I'm going to have a table, just like everybody else here is having it. And this year, I'm excited because I'm going to have a table. So it was one of those things that, I
want to see you doing salsa next year.
Oh, yeah, at CureFest or what?
Yeah, at CureFest. You know how they always perform.
Yeah.
Let's do a salsa
I'll have to see, who to talk to do that. That'll be fun.
So you have a table this year?
So I have a table this year. And so
okay, well, let's go back to starting Behold Begold.
Yeah, so Behold Begold. Okay. So I finished the practicum. I came back home, and then I started getting seizures. And that's kind of where I was going. I started getting the seizures. There was a time in my life where there was I was perfectly fine without seizures. And I was living like what you call a normal life. Going out, maybe doing a little partying with friends or having fun, And then I started getting seizures, and that was not safe, right? And that was not safe, obviously. Driving, that was not safe for anything, for myself, my health. And I was just what the heck? Where did these seizures come from? This is not good. What? So then I'm an adult now, so I'm okay, I'm going to speak about it. And I went to the doctor. They're yes, you have epilepsy. And I was diagnosed with that. And I'm just wait a second, what? Where is this coming from? Right? This is weird. I don't know. So I had to do my research. Then I had to go back, ask my dad, try to pull some things out of him. Then I went to my doctor. Then they were gave me my treatment plan of everything that had happened, which I've never kind of received or knew about. Mm-hmm. I realized that I left the hospital, and as I got older, I never thought about or think about, for asking what happened to me, what happened to my brain, right? So then after that, they gave me all this, and I was just left with papers and confused, So then I got to the doctor, and they're yes, you have epilepsy. They admitted me. They did a neuropsychological exam, everything. And then they're you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I'm what the heck? I'm 26, 27 now, and I'm back where I started, right? Just when I was free, and people telling me, not being restricted from doing stuff. I was dependent on others again. And that really made me really mad, and I was just,
me too.
I was just what the heck, cancer's coming to haunt me again, and I know that sounds funny, but it's just it was due to the treatment. Yeah. So that's when I started really crying. I remember I went home that day afterwards, after I got out of the hospital, I came home, I was sobbing, crying, telling the person next to me, why this, why again, why, And after I really was just done crying with all the tears that I had in my body, I felt something spiritual in me, and I felt it was the Holy Spirit, telling me it's going to be okay, giving me a pat on the back and saying I
have a plan for you.
I have a plan for you. Behold, right? And that's a word that we see a lot in the Bible. Behold that it's not over for you, patience, be patient, trust. So I did. And so I quickly was I'm going to start a website. Oh no, I said behold, and I got up quickly from the chair, and I was Behold Begold, and I was Behold Begold, because Begold is childhood cancer ribbon, and everything childhood cancer, gold, Behold Begold. I don't care if it sounds funny. That's the word that God gave me. That's the word I'm going to use, right? So Behold Begold, Behold Begold. And so then I started going on Instagram. I started going on Facebook. I started creating an advocacy movement, because that's what it is. It's a movement about speaking about the late effects of childhood cancer treatment. And which most people don't really speak about, know about, or hear about. We're saying, we need to educate others. Yeah. So that is what Behold Begold is about. I started going on Instagram. I hashtag late effects of childhood cancer, and I started seeing a girl from the UK who had 10 brain surgeries, and started talking about her late effects. And I was just what? And she was I had childhood cancer twice. I had this, leukemia, blah, blah, blah. And now I suffer with these late effects. And so I connected with her, and then I connected with another person. And this was a girl in the UK. Then there was a girl from Switzerland. Then there was a person from another place. And then I was just wow, this is all around the world, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when I started connecting with others. And I was there needs to be something that's a group, or something that makes you feel again, you're not alone. You're not the only one. Going back to what we initially talked to, you're not the only one. Mm-hmm. And so that was the purpose, the mission. Behold Begold is to perceive an unstoppable force of positivity, ambition, and resiliency that arises within you while undergoing the late effects that come with childhood cancer. And that, I don't know, that came into my head, that pitch, that phrase was something. My mission.
Your mission.
That's what it is. And what does that mean? Juanita, you were able to graduate from elementary school. Juanita, you were able to graduate from middle school. Juanita, you were able to do high school. You were able to do community college. You were able to do high school. You went to DC. You did your practicum. It's like you're accomplishing so many things despite the late effects.
Yeah.
So I took this approach more as like, don't pity yourself. Look at everything you've done and keep doing awesome things, right? Keep doing it because it's been working out. You might need a little time. You might need a little help. There might need to be a lot of self-care, but it's going to get done, you know? And that's when BeholdBeGold started. People started contacting me to do a lot of like public speaking and stuff like that. I do a lot of motivational speaking about, you know, focusing a lot on late effects, helping these children out. It's hard for children, adolescents to go to the workplace because then they have more health issues, to maintain a job, to obtain a job, to get employed, to go through all that life afterwards, after survivorship. And so that needs to be spoken about, you know, because I went through all that. And it just needs to be spoken about. So that's what I usually do. I connect with others. BeholdBeGold is about educating the community. I go and educate teachers. I go and educate nurses. I educate, you know, even sometimes my physicians, you know, they just don't know. And they're just like, oh, wow, you know, they don't. Like the neurologist didn't know anything, you know. So it was one of those things that I felt was a topic that needed to be discussed. And yeah, I've been doing a lot of,
It's needed,
And I say a voice, anybody can be a voice. I leave it open for anybody. And what I do is that I do a lot of marketing. I do a lot of myself, and I am looking for volunteers if people want to volunteer. But basically, I do a lot of things, just me. I do the marketing. I love making videos, another fun fact. And I do a lot of everything to promote it, to get others to know about it, and let them know that they're not alone. And yeah, that's
so important because you really do, when you're in that hospital room or when you're at home because you can't go to school, all that stuff, you really do feel like you're alone, even though you know you're not. You sound like you're a one-man show, but I know there's no way you can be but I mean, you do so much. What do you want people to know about how they can help you? You know, what do you need help with? You know, how can people spread this word, you know, just the goodness of what BeholdBeGold is?
I think, I help in the sense of just like spreading, hashtagging, you know, just even hashtagging, researching online, late effects of childhood cancer, BeholdBeGold, anything that helps. Let's say you're on Instagram, go follow, go share. Even if you don't want to follow, go share the video, go share the post, do something that can pass the word along, of like a voice. It's not just my voice. I interview many people with late effects, and I share their stories, right? And it's becoming something bigger. So volunteer in the sense of like, hey, Juanita, do you need help with a post? Do you need help with research? Because a lot of the work I do is a lot of research. Because before I post something, that's something critical that we all, as we have learned, we need to do that. So, you know, just like somebody doing that, sharing, spreading the word, spreading the message. Have you learned about BeholdBeGold? It's a place where there's a lot of community for childhood cancer survivors, and a lot of, you know, people can relate. I post a lot of this in September, and I can't tell you how many messages I've gotten from many survivors who have told me, hey, I'm going through this. Hey, how can I help? Hey, can I do something with you? I want to share my story. Hey, you know, so it's like, my child has late effects. This is something that needed to be created. Yeah. I mean, now with all that feedback, it's like, let's get a team going, right? Let's get something going. Yeah. So if anybody wants to volunteer with really helping me with gathering content, gathering information, perhaps interviewing other people and sending me their stories for me to like edit or whatever, stuff like that. You know, I've always, because like I told you, I'm a one-woman act. There's nobody kind of helping me out, but the people who I do interview, they help me out, right? So there is.
And it's not just about, you know, the focus is kind of on the child that's battling cancer, but it's not just about, it's about the parent or the family member, or the friend, or whoever can come forward and, you know, and add the information and just.
There's a mom who came to me, her child had bone cancer, unfortunately passed, but she was telling me how when they started the treatment, they told her about the late effects that he would have with the amputation and everything. And so she's come on. I've interviewed her. She shared her story with me. So yeah, it's not just about survivors. It's also about the whole family coming in. You have
Yeah.
a sibling who, has learning comprehension, or everybody can contribute.
Yeah, and I mean, every single cancer diagnosis is a family one, so
Correct.
it does affect the whole family. Okay, looking ahead, 5 years, 10 years, where do you want Behold Be Gold before we wrap everything up? Where do you want it to be? What's your vision?
My vision is to make it perhaps a nonprofit one day. Like I said, right now it's a movement, and I do what I can with this movement before it can become something bigger, just because I'm one person again and I can't do everything by myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, make it a nonprofit. I would like to write a book, because I feel like there's so much needs to be said. And I hope to, be a child life specialist, if that's the calling that I'm meant to be, or if it's not the meant to be calling, then I hope to keep doing advocacy work and really touching hearts of all these people who create change, who help us create change happen. And doing a lot of public speaking, because that's really the people need to hear a testimony to really understand, put themselves in in the person's shoes.
It's they need to hear your story, one, to get off their hindies and do something, but also it makes people, when they hear stories like yours, it makes them not sweat the small stuff as much. It makes them appreciate their lives better. Like, I had so many people that would tell me, gosh, hearing about that, it makes me thankful that my biggest issue is my son got a C on his test, instead of, am I going to survive my cancer, or, whatever. So all of that's used for good. It's all used for good. So everything that you've gone through, I love that you're taking your very complex and challenging situation and heartbreaking situation. Now you're a survivor. Now you're, and that's because you have a beautiful, beautiful heart. You're taking this and you're helping other people, not just the child with cancer person who's battling, but the whole family. And because you care, because you want them to know you're not alone. You want them to be able to have resources and stuff, and that just shows what a caring person you are. And
correct.
So how can people find you, before we log off? How can people find you? And like I said, you kind of said what you need from people. So when people want to find you, besides checking you out on Instagram and everything.
So yes, so they can search my website, BeholdBeGold.org. They can go there to write to me, to look at all the kind of work that I've done over the years. As far as advocacy, and they could search Facebook group Behold Be Gold, Twitter Behold Be Gold.
Right.
I just got a LinkedIn because that's the thing that people have and I don't, so I got Behold Be Gold, and Clubhouse. That's a new app that's come around, but I'm also on Clubhouse, Behold Be Gold. So anywhere you type Behold Be Gold, it'll be there. I'll be there, and yeah, they can search to me through there and inbox me, message me, whatever they need to do.
I can tell just how you are. She will get back to you.
Yes.
Will not sit there. You're super inspiring, just what you're doing. I love your cause. I love that you want to get back. Clearly, there's a big plan for you. And you're taking, lemons and making lemonade and just helping people. I love meeting like-minded people who take a hard situation and just say, this isn't going to end here. This is something good's going to come of it. And you're one of those people. So I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
I think you're amazing. I look forward to just Gold Rush Care Foundation's relationship with you. And, so for those of you out here, check out Juanita on Behold Be Gold. Follow her, message her. If you can volunteer, whatever you can do. Support her. She's amazing. And, it's heavy lifting stuff. So if we can help her, then that would be awesome. So thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Any last words before we sign off?
Behold Be Gold.
Behold Be Gold. Until next time, thank you for joining us on Rush Podcast.
Thank you.